This presentation will begin our next unit on the progressive movement. We currently have a double unit on immigration and the progressive, since the two have a lot of subject matter that overlaps. And just a reminder that they both take place during the time period of industrialization. So the first thing we are going to look at is how to watch the flipped lesson videos. For the most success, follow these steps. Step 1, watch and listen to the video without looking at your notes. Turn over your paper, put your pencil down. Just watch and listen first. Step 2, look at your notes now, flip it over, and see if you can complete any of these sentences or fill in any of the notes without watching again. And then finally, watch the video one last time and listen again, and then pause as you fill in the remainder of the notes that you need help with. If you follow these steps, a lot of this material, you will realize that you know it much better than if you just mindlessly are watching and filling in the notes. Remember, you are tested on all of this information, and it is not gone over in class. You are expected to bring this information with you and apply it in class. So I hope you enjoy this presentation on the progressive era. The progressive movement takes place in the early 1900s and is a reform movement. Some background on this movement. Reform means to change for the better or to improve. So the people of the progressive movement are trying to change society and change certain aspects of society and improve them. So the three main movements of this time period, the three main areas of reform the progressives are focused on, are workplace reforms, the temperance movement, which is the banning of alcohol, and the women's suffrage movement. So you can see in the picture there, it's two girls working in a factory. The conditions are not very safe, and you can see they're very, very young, much younger than you would see in a factory in the U.S. today. So let's start looking at each of the specific reform movements. Workplace reform. In the factories, people worked long hours, they received little pay, and any children of any age, adults of any age, could work in the factory. So the goals of people who want to change factory life for the better are getting shorter working hours for the workers. Remember, most of these workers are immigrants. Getting higher wages or higher pay for the hours that are worked, and banning child labor. Having young children work in the factory can be very unsafe. However, factory owners liked hiring young children as workers because they could pay them less money, and the children had really small hands and were a little bit more flexible than adults, and they could reach into those pieces of machinery and fix what was happening there. So the workplace reform also wants to increase safety standards in the factory. People did not wear any protective gear or anything like that. Articles of clothing or hands often got stuck or caught in the machinery, and the machines didn't stop. There was no safety on them. And so working in the factory could be very, very dangerous and difficult. To achieve these goals, workers would form a labor union. And a labor union is a group of people who are working together to achieve these goals. And they might do that by going on strike, in which they refuse to go to work until their demands are met by the owners, hoping that during the time the factory is shut down, the owner will come to his senses and meet many of their demands. And we will talk about a very famous strike that occurred at Andrew Carnegie's factory in class. Other reform movements are the temperance movement. And the basis for this movement is the group of people is opposed to the making, sale, and consumption of alcohol. So they don't want it to be produced, they don't want it to be sold, and they don't want people to drink it. This group believes that drinking alcohol is the basis for all of the evil in society. For any crime or bad issue that happens, it's because people are drinking alcohol. And what actually happens, the federal government in Washington, D.C. passes the 18th Amendment to the Constitution. An amendment is a change in the law, and we talked about amendments during Reconstruction as well. We're adding two more here, which prohibits or bans the manufacture, sale, and transport of alcoholic beverages. This begins the time period called Prohibition of the 1920s, which we will discuss further when we get to that unit. So alcohol is banned for a significant period of time in the United States. And you can see men who are pouring alcohol down the sewers that they are forced to get rid of from their shops. Another reform movement of the progressives is women's suffrage. Suffrage means the right to vote. The basis for this movement is to gain voting rights and increase educational opportunities for women. There are many women and men in favor of this movement, and there are many people, women and men, who are not in favor of this movement. The U.S. government passed the 19th Amendment to the Constitution, which grants women the right to vote. The leaders of this movement, two very famous women, are Elizabeth Cady Stanton and Susan B. Anthony, both of which you talked about in elementary school, and worked very hard to gain these rights for women, especially the right to vote, so that they had a say in government and how their life was run. Finally, I would like you to take the time to respond to this quote. "It is downright mockery to talk to women of their enjoyment of the blessings of liberty, while they are denied the use of the only means of securing them provided by this government, the ballot." Susan B. Anthony gave this quote in a speech, and it would be wonderful if you could respond to it on your piece of paper in reflection and explain what she means. Some definitions to help you understand the quote are mockery, which means making fun of people in a mean way; securing, which means getting, keeping, or protecting; and the ballot, which is the paper form that people use to check off which candidate or which person they want to vote for on election day. Be sure that you have completed your notes on the progressive movement and bring them to class with you. We will go over them as well as expand on them greatly in class. Have a great week.